Newsfirst Newsline with Faraz Shaukatali.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome back from the holidays and Happy New Year to you. And this is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo, and broadcasting on TV1, part of the Capital Maharaja Group. And on this morning, there's a growing realization that once more the government have failed, and this time their failure is of mammoth proportions. They have caused no end of hardship, and all because they couldn't get their act together, to the detriment of at least 25 people who died in that awful tragedy at Mi Totamulla, just outside Colombo. To discuss quite whether the government has dumped their promises about the dump is that political activist, public interest activist, Mr. Rusripala Tennakoon. Very good morning to you, Mr. Tennakoon.
Good morning, Faraz.
And we are happy to have you, but we are unhappy that we have to discuss such a major tragedy. Isn't it awful? What do you think, Mr. Rusripala?
Certainly, Faraz, it is a disaster of a very huge magnitude, which we have never experienced before. You know, this type of thing. We have had natural hazards causing a lot of costing lives in this country. Of course, nobody can be blamed for those, because those are natural hazards and beyond the control of people who are at the helm of affairs. But here is a situation quite different to that.
It's the people of that area. When we went in yesterday, the ambience was of sober acceptance, complete shock that these people have had to endure such an awful tragedy. So a tragedy that has been years in the making. If we listen to this clip, perhaps you will begin to understand the level of frustration and annoyance that these people and suffering that these people are going through.
This was a gold mine for the politicians in the past. The Colombo Municipal Council awarded a tender worth 600 million at 800 million rupees and made sure the other 200 million went into the pockets of politicians. The garbage is being dumped using the lorries of the mayor of Kolonava, the deputy mayor and even the councillors in the opposition. They made this a method of income. Our children have been buried with this same garbage. Over 60 families are under the debris. The politicians who created this mountain of garbage used it for petty political gains.
And there you are, powerful words, claims of impropriety and probably a departure from procedure in terms of the award of the contract. The charge that a 600 million contract had become 800 million and 200 million was distributed. It wasn't part of the garbage, you know. Yeah. And the people there are very, very angry. They're very, very angry.
Yeah.
And Mr. Rusripala, you were there too yesterday. What did you detect?
Yeah. For us, in the first instance, I would like to endorse everything that was stated by that person who was representing the people of that area on this day of tragedy. What he expressed was really the feelings of the people in that area. You and I, when we went to the site, what we saw was a silent endurance, silent waiting of the people, but they were containing themselves with great difficulty of many things that they have to come out with, you know. Otherwise, they appeared to be really helpless. They appeared to be people who have been forgotten by the authorities in this country. Despite there are several protests which went on record a number of times by the media, we saw everywhere that they were protesting and they were forewarned of a tragedy of this nature which the government did not take any care or notice of.
How can they be forewarned? One of those residents, I overheard them say, it was a youth, and being comforted by his friends as we were walking by. Apparently that young man had lost several members of his close family, and he's been comforted by his friends. And we heard him say, they say, they as in the government, say that they warned us. How can they warn us? We were there before the rubbish.
Exactly. This is the most important thing for us. Now, people are trying to make out that various authorities went there before, and they tried to warn them of impending dangers. It is not the case. When you get to the bottom of it, the garbage was brought to the places where the people were living.
Yes.
People did not start moving into a garbage area.
Quite.
I mean, those people who are affected today, with their houses smashed to the ground, with lives lost, are people who are having title deeds to their properties in and around that area.
Quite.
They are not squatters anymore.
Yeah.
So this is a fact that has to be known and has to be accepted by the authorities in this country. I would like to see, in this instance, somebody from the government, on behalf of the government, coming forward and accepting responsibility for this disaster.
The people there, and Shamindra Ferdinando from the island has captured it perfectly in his in the headline this morning in the island. Residents curse former, present governments. And that is exactly what is going on. These people are not interested in what the politicians have to say. And in fact, the politicians will venture there with sort of grave consequences if it went wrong.
Yes. Because
as you say, the people of the area are displaying an amazing stoicism there. I've heard of the stiff upper British slip, but this takes the cake. They were controlled and engulfed by sadness and tragedy, and they contained themselves, obviously out of respect for the ones that have passed away so tragically. But it is almost like spontaneous combustion just about waiting to happen.
Yes. It is a tragedy. You know, the people have to pay with their lives. You know, it cost their lives to endure this, and in the end what happened was that all those people who became victims at the cost of their lives are helpless today, and they have been tolerating this state of affairs for the last several years. I must tell you, if you went to Kolonnav area, the Mitotamulla Kolonnav area, around a radius of 2 kilometers, people could not have a proper meal properly because of the smell coming out from this garbage dump. This is not a thing that happened yesterday. You know, it is a tragedy that it fell on their houses. It cost the lives of people, but the number of suffering people were hundreds of thousands of people. I'm wondering why ever the people living in and around that area decided to continue to pay their taxes to the local authority, because they were so negligent. They did not care to just pay any attention to the suffering that the people had.
Who has been negligent? Is it the local authority? Is it the central government? Who is it?
We are yet to find out, because this is a country where when such a disaster happens, there is no declaration of this is an instance where the whole country would have been put on, they would have called this a national mourning period.
But you know, Mr. Rusipala, I couldn't but help notice yesterday when we went there, this area has been represented historically by people who are quite high profile, shall we say.
Yeah.
We had Bharata Lakshman before from that area.
Yes.
We had Dominda Silva from there.
Yes.
And these people enjoyed, or so-called enjoyed, the support of the public in the area. They were big figures. How come they couldn't do anything for their people?
Yeah, that only shows one thing. that they were continuously being deceived by these people. They were living on promises. They were told that in a few months' time this will be done. If you listen to that clip, what we heard,
Yes.
that person says very clearly that the Prime Minister, today's Prime Minister,
Yeah.
just before in 2015 have met them, and they have promised them in 6 months' time we will bring a solution to this matter. And what he says in that clip is, yes, the 6 months passed, they elected a new government and nothing happened. Now this is what has been happening for us in this issue, where people were just left to bear, what they could bear or what they couldn't bear. The government had nothing to do with it.
And so generations of people have grown up with that smell.
They continue to do that, that suffering.
And how tragic, awful.
Definitely. This is a place where the central government, the environmental authority and the local government, the municipality which is dumping the garbage there, they are all quiet about this situation. Who is responsible? Now this should have been prevented in two ways. One is, even if they stop dumping of the garbage into this place, when the people came onto the streets complaining against this, this wouldn't have happened, because that should have put a stop to that thing,
Yeah.
And they were not caring. They were not caring.
Mr. Pal, there was some claim that this dump was 40 feet high. It was certainly much higher than 40 feet yesterday.
What you and I saw was much bigger.
Yeah.
In fact, I have seen it many times. I have passed that way, and I have also enjoyed the worst smell that we were made to bear.
Yeah.
While passing through that area.
Indeed.
Like all those residents who were continuously suffering as a result of that.
The sentiment of the people in the area can perhaps best be described by these images that I captured yesterday. Perhaps we can play them. There they go.
Yes.
There you are.
Yeah, yeah.
That is the sentiment of the people there.
Yes, yes.
And in their own way, all the crowds and so on that came, they didn't come to gawk and gape and stare and gaze at this mountain of garbage. They were there to show solidarity with the people of that area.
There is a deeper meaning for us in those posters that have been put out.
Yeah.
Did you notice that they state something like manslaughter? Somebody is responsible.
Yes. Now I'm glad you're bringing this this point up. A very important point, not little. A very important and significant point.
Yeah.
And when you mentioned negligence,
Yes.
surely somebody somewhere, individual or a group of people, are responsible for this. It is nothing but negligence. You can't possibly keep dumping and dumping and dumping and hope for the best.
Yes.
And that was a shocking disregard of the potential liabilities that could arise there.
Yes.
What steps is this government going to do? Is it going to be another case of they're going to say, in Koskama they said 50,000 a month, and I don't know. We're still waiting on a rational explanation, and we're still waiting to see whether those people have been rehoused. We're told that 675 people are displaced just from Mitotamulla. But the people there are saying that the figures are somewhat massaged, and they feel that this is more, or it certainly feels that way to them.
For us, the people in this country should realize that the promises that they're giving about relief to be given to in such instances, it doesn't sound anything to me. For me, it doesn't mean anything, because all these relief monies are from where? These are taxpayers' money and public money. These people act as if they are the great biggest Samaritans, and then they promise this, that and all that after such a big disaster has happened.
I have a request from a viewer, so if the control room can replay those images that we played out. Some of the program viewers can't read Sinhalese.
I will give the translation.
Nor can I actually.
Yes.
So, Mr. Risapala, if you wouldn't mind,
yes.
Can you tell us what that means
Exactly.
coming up now? What does it say?
One, if I remember very clearly, it said that there is this mini maruo.
There you go.
Yes. It says Kunugenawa Yahapalane mini marua. So they say the coalition brought the garbage,
Yeah.
and the Yahapalana government did the manslaughter.
Right. And the other image, the one that was on its own on a white sheet of paper.
Yes. Tope kuno adin pasu kolonna. From today, we don't need your garbage in Kolonna.
Yes, and you is in a sort of derogatory you.
Derogatory, they are telling somebody else's affairs, somebody else's dirt
Yes.
being dumped here.
Mr. Risapala, I know that there are other locations that are being considered, and that the BOI and the Central Environmental Authority are already aware of these proposals to have a comprehensive garbage waste disposal project, mooted by various international companies and so on, over several years and several times. And there is land apparently sort of inland of Puntland, where there are some old quarries, where the garbage, that area and the property there lends itself to the garbage, the safe disposal of garbage. And yet, several years and several proposals later, nothing has been done. Is that, you know, we're talking about negligence. Who is negligence? Those people are talking about manslaughter.
Whereas this tragedy is not due to lack of expertise. No, it is due to any lack of knowledge or availability of resources to do this.
Yeah.
This entire thing has happened because of the total uncaring attitudes of the politicians who treat other things as more important. Now, dealing with garbage is not a rocket science, no?
Indeed.
Every country in the world where there are human beings, there will be garbage accumulating, and they are dealing with it.
Yes.
Have we ever heard of people dying with a garbage dump falling onto their roofs in any other place in this world? Sri Lanka is the only place. Why? Because we have not paid attention to this matter in the proper way. The politicians have been neglecting this for several decades. They have done this. Every politician who have been in power have to be held responsible for this state of affairs, for these deaths. They should resign their posts. I am waiting for the day just to find out whether there is anybody who will come forward and tell, yes, we accept this mistake and we will bring a solution to this. What they are talking today is, we will give you that, we will give you some relief, we will give you some money. That is not what is required. Of course, they don't have to announce that. They have to do it. It is public money. It is taxpayers' money they are dealing with. They are not bringing it from their homes. So I don't consider it as a big deal when they promise like big things, okay, we'll give you this amount, that amount. That apart, where is the solution? What are they going to do to this thing? Are they allowing the disaster to continue? Are they allowing the people in that area, 2 kilometers in and around that Kolonna area, to suffer eternally with this rotten smell, with their children being unable to take a proper meal because of the dirty smell, and health issues?
We don't know what untold damage is happening to the people's health.
Exactly.
With this constant exposure to these noxious fumes.
No proper assessment ever has been made by anybody. That's the worst part of it. Now, these are things on which people can make proper assessments and take precautionary measures. I mean, you see the world situation for us. in 2009, the Italian courts, they convicted 7 scientists for not forewarning the arrival of a earthquake. That earthquake came and it cost 300 lives to Italy, and somebody went to courts. 7 of the leading scientists, most of them were experts. They were working in the risk control management department of that government. They were convicted and jailed for 7 years each.
This flippant attitude on the part of government, and in terms specifically in relation to this, is completely unforgivable. Do you think the government should resign, like those posters are sort of indicating? And that chap whom we heard.
No, we like to know, for us, there must be some responsibility devolving on somebody, no?
Where does the buck stop?
That is the thing. We like to know the public. Now, we do not want to hear from the politicians, some pleasing words. Okay, we will do something, we will look after you. That's not what we want. Let somebody come forward and say, this is what has happened. This is the proper assessment of the damage. These are the numbers that have gone. They are dead. These are the houses that are damaged. We are responsible for this. So and so is responsible for this, and this is what we are going to do. This country wants to know that. I think we have come to a juncture where we should know from where to where we are going from now. In which direction?
Shamindra Ferdinando from the island has just sent a message. He says, you're missing the main point. The private sector has been given the garbage clearing operation for years. The contract is worth over 600 million rupees.
Yeah.
Isn't that the point?
What does it matter whether it is the private sector or the government sector? What we want is the garbage to be removed and dumped in a place where it doesn't cause hazards to the people.
Usually in other places where corruption is rife, one is paid a sum of money or some inducement to get something done.
Yeah.
It looks like in Sri Lanka it's working in the reverse. So there's all this money, but nothing is being done.
Now what is bad in this is, it is not the question of who is doing it, with the private sector or the government sector.
Yeah.
What is bad is how much of money has gone into corruption as a result of this, whether it is in the private hands or whether it is in the public hands.
Yeah.
And finally, what have they done to the problem? Have they found a solution to that? What does it matter if the private have this government ever publicized any international tender or some calling for tenders or a request for application of tenders for this for waste management proposal? Never. Why? I don't know, not to my knowledge. If they do it today, I am sure there will be several hundreds of important companies who know the technology, who have had the experience, who are doing this in other countries, will come forward and do with their own investments on a BOO or BOT, call it anything.
But you know, this contract of 600 million has been given in a sort of densely populated area in the heart of Greater Colombo.
Yes.
Don't you think that that's the whole point? The 600 million has been given because they've given them a convenient dumping site, convenient to the contractor probably, but not so convenient to the people of the area when it could have been taken miles out and been out of the way of other people. Don't you think that that's the point of the 600 million contract?
That is what has happened today, no far as.
Yeah.
They shifted this location of dumping yard from place to place in the city of Colombo.
Yeah.
We had in the Mahawat area sometime before. And a few years ago we had it in the Urguduat area.
Yeah.
Now they have shifted it to Colon now.
Yeah.
This is where the fault of the government is. You see, we must locate it in a place where the inhabitants are not affected, whether it can be done in an environmental friendly manner, in a very scientific way. These are things that can be done, but who address this issue? You see, they find some contractor, They give now the accusation that was brought in that the piece that we heard.
Yeah.
The
audio yes.
piece that we heard
Yeah.
was that they are accusing, the public is accusing that a 600 million worth of contract has been jacked up to 800 million and somebody shared the 200 million. Now, if
but even that might be overlooked if they delivered 600 million worth of work without the attendant risks.
Yeah.
You can't possibly keep dumping garbage over garbage over garbage without compacting it and so on and so forth, and bang in the middle of a place where lots of people live.
No, this is a matter dealing with the infrastructure no far as. The contractor cannot decide where he is going to dump the garbage. It's a matter where the intervention of the government at the highest level is required to provide a safe place for them to dump it.
And a viewer is pointing out that, probably a legal viewer, that the Attorney General blamed the CMC in February this year. Is that
It's a meaningless thing. What does it matter to us?
Can we not file action
Yeah.
against the CMC for involuntary manslaughter?
If the Attorney General has just left it by blaming the CMC, Attorney General should be found fault with. What does it prove? It shows that the Attorney General was aware of some legal implication of this whole thing.
Right.
And if he simply waited by kept quiet by blaming the CMC or passing the responsibility to them, I think that's a gross dereliction of his part of the duty.
And of course that was from a viewer. We have to establish.
I mean, we don't know. We don't know.
Yes,
I mean, if that is so, what I'm saying is that nobody can just take the responsibility by saying that we told this, we warned this.
Yeah.
Is that what we expect from a government? If the people were in a dangerous area, a hazard-prone area.
I think we got our words mixed up. It needs to be. It wasn't the Auditor General. It wasn't the Attorney General. It was the Auditor General's report. Yes.
Maybe.
So the Auditor General is obviously a department that is used to looking through things with a fine-tooth comb, and so on. So now they've discovered this mega problem and blamed the CMC for it. So if the CMC is responsible, at least as a test case, shouldn't we hold some of these people accountable and bring an action? Somebody should be able to bring an action for involuntary manslaughter.
This is definitely manslaughter, and there are international laws which require the government to observe certain basic rules and regulations with regard to the maintenance of human right provisions. Now, under those, an action can be brought up. I think we should have the right to bring up an action and then punish those people who have been responsible for it.
Another viewer is telling us that whilst this is going on, they are forgetting that the Iranians are building a tunnel 17 kilometers long under some mountains up in hills. Now, this viewer is saying that if we don't watch out, that will be the next disaster of this sort of type waiting to happen, and therefore they must look into it and make sure that all potential liabilities are removed, that the people there should be rehoused super fast, not wait for a disaster to happen and then try and excavate them out and rehouse them. You know, progress is needed. I think if you remember the Aswan Dam project, the temple of Abu Simbel went underwater.
Yes.
In pursuance of the Aswan Dam project. That project has transformed the entire agricultural landscape of Egypt.
Yes.
Now, you know, they didn't have disasters because even though it was done all those years ago, people were shifted out and so on and so forth. And that is what needs to happen.
That is the duty of the government. You know, a hazard is a thing. Until the hazard it affects the human lives or the lives, animals or whatever, and the property, it is not a hazard, it's a potential hazard. So what the government has to look into is, what is the potential hazard that is impending in a project or on a certain issue?
It's all about risk management.
Exactly, that is risk management. This is where the government has totally failed. In this instance,
I think we need to try and narrow it down further and say that the people at the CMC have behaved terribly. I've lost for words, but they have behaved without any look at the potential risks, and they ought to be held responsible. They're not given these jobs and these appointments and being elected just to sit there and play the baile, are they?
It should definitely go beyond the municipality for us, because when people took to streets, when the police were used, when the armed forces were used to disperse them, it's a matter certainly would have invited the attention of the higher authorities going beyond the municipality. So therefore, if somebody is trying to attribute this, this something that came on the municipality, I don't think it is right.
About that tunnel, we must bear in mind the efforts of Gamini Dissanayake in the Mahaveli. Why that has been an enormously successful project.
Yes.
And he acted with grave regard to various risk factors and so on. And all we're asking is for some professionalism, apart from an undertaking to the people.
Yes.
Let's forget the gratitude
Yeah.
and all that, because they got their vote.
Yes.
But at least they must be able to deliver something of some substance. And I believe that the lawyers who are committed to public interest action must look at a charge, the potential to bring somebody to court and hold them accountable, at least through an action for involuntary manslaughter.
At least we have international regulations for this, and if the lawyers, so if there is any civil activist who will want to take this matter up, there is a resolution passed by a world body recently at a conference that was held, where they say the states have the primary responsibility to protect the people and their property in their territories from hazards, and this calls for formulation of national policies in those lines within their capacity, within their availability of resources. That's a must under human rights regulations and laws. In India, somebody went to courts, Supreme Court very recently, not even 1 week ago. They wanted all the liquor shops, a total ban on liquor right along the highways of India.
Indeed.
And the Supreme Court gave an order. 500 meters from a highway, you can't have a liquor shop there. Total ban in the entire country. This is how laws are operating in other countries.
We must learn from the example set in other countries. Mr. Rusipala Tenakun, we've overrun, but thank you very much for your presence here.
Yes.
And as we think about those residents of Meetotamulla and those tragic events there, we must urge government to act more decisively and incisively. In the meantime, that's it from Newsline. We'll see you tomorrow morning, same time, same place, helping you stay connected. Have a great day.